Hello. So this is Sydney and Liana, and if you're not watching us, then you can't see us, but that's who we are. Post-racial podcast. We're talking to Montia Brock today, who is so lovely to spend time with us here. And I know what I know about you is that you and Liana work together at Forward Wellness. You're a clinical therapist, but what else do we need to know about you? Like, how do you identify? Who are you? Is at work? Who are you at home? Anything that you think that we need to know about you?
Yeah, my name is Montia Brock, she, her, hers, and I am a Black woman, Pittsburgh native, Hill District to be specific. We know how Pittsburgh people are.
We're also neighbors.
Yes. Professionally, I am a mental health therapist, and I also identify as a birth worker, which is a spectrum of things I'm coming into practice of doing, from birth doula work to postpartum doula work. Will probably end up very much on like the full spectrum doula work. I'm really interested in like the whole process of conception and what conception and how we choose partners look like in African diaspora. But and I'm also a certified lactation counselor. I work full time for a local university facilitating a family therapy model in a community and a research setting. And I also work part time at Forward Wellness with Liana.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
You doing all of this from your house right now?
All of it from my house. The only thing I'm not doing right now is that I'm really missing is this school year I became a RIF volunteer at Pittsburgh Wow. And the very beautiful thing about that experience is that my grandmother and my godmother have been dragging me to do volunteer work since I can walk. And the one thing I've always believed is that I may not have money to give back, but I always have my time. And my connection to Pittsburgh Wow is actually worked there in a therapeutic component, left that position, and was still very connected to the school. Obviously, it's in my community. The principal, the staff, they were so good to me, and me and the principal stayed in touch. And I would always ask, like, what y'all need? How can I still give? And she connected me to RIF, and I'm missing my reading buddy.
Mm-hmm. Will you tell people what RIF is for those who are not familiar?
RIF is, I believe they're a nonprofit organization called Reading is Fundamental. If you're familiar with the Story Mobile, that is RIF. They get a lot of like AmeriCorps students and stuff who come in and work for them, but their mission is all about literacy. So when I go weekly, and I have a reading buddy that I'm connected with, and they do first, second, and third graders. And I have a third grader right now in my first year who's amazing. And it is in place to like help those who have trouble reading, but also my buddy in particular, he's a freaking genius. Like this little guy is so smart. And we realize that sometimes how even those kids fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And giving him like some really great one-on-one time, and he's a sweetheart. All the kids are, but he's a sweetheart. So we play games, and everything that we do there is connected to literacy. And they have a lot of good programs.
Mm-hmm. So important. Yeah. That leads me to my next question, which I'm thinking like what the main issues you're seeing right now for people in your field or people who share your experience. You know, what are they talking about? What's happening? What's going on? What's going on around you?
I'll say at the top of the list across the board, whether if it's work, personal, friends, family, it's just knowing the facts and knowing where to get facts. One of my soapboxes as a professional is credible sources, like explaining to people what a credible source is and understanding who the creators of the content is, what their intentions are, and really just doing their own work. Specifically in the Black community, for very good reasons, we mistrust a lot of entities, not just government, but a lot of entities in general. And social media has become such a large news outlet, and people still don't understand the importance of check the source. Who wrote it?
Because it makes you wonder, do people sometimes think that the source is reliable as the poster, and that's like what matters more than what is being posted? It's interesting. I don't know if everybody draws the line there.
I mean, great production is great production. And you're right, like when it draws a person in, and me personally, I'm someone who's very empathetic and like I rat off in my emotions. So if I hear a good story, I'm pulled in. So I imagine for people who may not have as much education as me or have as much access to outlets and resources as I do, and how they just get fed such wrong information, which is just as bad as when they spread it. So definitely just knowing the facts, having good resources, and just a complete flip of what our lives look like. I personally am really big on compartmentalizing things. I had to do that because I'm such a busybody. Like when I leave work, work's there. When I come home, it's home. When I'm here, I'm doing this, like putting things in their boxes so that I remain balanced. And now I have to bring it all to one space.
Mm.
I live with my family. There's 5 generations in our home, so I'm confined to my room to do both my therapy jobs. So figuring that out, and I don't know if you all can hear, but I have a pocket American bully. She is one, and she doesn't leave my room. She's just snoring. Like right now, she's snoring. She's snoring kind of light. You might not be able to hear her, but just figuring life out.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I'm having the same challenge also with doing everything in the same space. It's like, it's like you're cooking in your bathroom. Sometimes it just feels like every single thing is in the same room, because it is pretty much. And it's really hard to process.
I think this time it's very existential for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I shared with my supervisor how I was having these existential thoughts and things go on in my mind before this happened. And this situation has forced me to really sit down and think about life. I don't have a choice. I ain't got shit else to do. But think about and plan and actually put things into action. And for some people that may not be so great. I worry about people who have like alcohol dependency and drug dependency right now, and people who don't have the mental capacity to deal with some of the things they're dealing with, the emotional, spiritual, the family, the community support. The people who I'm connected with who seem to be getting along well during this time have all those components. They have resources, they have a sense of community, they have some sense of faith, rather if it's just their inner hope that we will get through this, or they are actually connected to a spiritual community that looks different for everybody. So yeah.
Is there anything in, I feel back now, I'm like skipping ahead a little, but I really want to ask based on that last comment, like if there's anything that you feel, for you in particular in that list of stuff that's supportive that you've seen has worked for other people or like clients or whoever, that's working for you specifically?
Hope. I've always been a pretty optimistic person. I've been very fortunate to be someone to, again, have the access and the knowledge to resources and things. And I can honestly say when there's been something I've wanted or something that I've set out to do, I've done it. So when we talk about trials and tribulations, it's not that I haven't had any. I've just always viewed how everything else in my life has been so great. And that's just how I operate. So having that hope and being really empathetic and understanding and using a lens of like, it could be worse. Like I'm low key complaining half the time about like all these people in our home. And then I had a friend say to me who she lives with her partner, it must be so nice to be around family right now. And I had to check myself. There are people who have not touched another person in weeks. And I'm complaining about my 10 and 11-year-old niece and nephew who are just being kids. They're just doing what they know how to do.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective and thought, because I'm home with my partner. I know, Sydney, you're in the same boat, huh? You and one other and your husband. And yeah, it's interesting because I've had the same experience. I've been talking to some people who are alone. I have a couple of friends who actually drove very, very far so they didn't have to be alone, so they could go see their family or something, and we're going to start seeing, an uptick in suicide, an uptick in, just
domestic violence, child abuse, all the things that really scare me. We've seen this during the Great Depression, during the recession of 2008. We know what happens to society when these big major crises come out. People lash out and they deal with it the only way, or the essential way they know how to, and that's what scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just talking about that. Sid was just saying that.
Oh yeah, I read an article about in France they had to start opening up hotels, or in Paris, yeah, because there was like a 30% increase in domestic violence, and so they had to start, and the shelters were overwhelmed, and they had to start housing people in closed down hotels.
Well, good for the hotel.
Yeah, right. I mean,
I mean, you have to find a profit off this situation,
Right.
My group supervisor had said that the child abuse reporting rates had dropped drastically, and to the untrained eye, it's like, oh, good, but it's like actually
not good.
No, like home visitors aren't going into home, kids aren't in school. Like it's that very kind of eerie undertone that we know is probably occurring. Like,
yeah. If anything, the numbers are probably going up.
Right. But without reporting,
there's no reporting, because a lot of that reporting is obviously people who these kids are seeing outside of the home, people who are outsiders, and if you can't see the outsider,
right,
terrifying. It's terrifying.
Well, maybe this is like a terribly enormous follow-up question to that, but I mean, other than you, is there anything that like you have seen in terms of for people that are in the situation you're talking about that is like, I don't even know if advice is the right word, but like support or like some channels of accessing some type of support in the situation? Like I said, that's an enormous question given the situation. And
211 911 isn't going anywhere. And I think sometimes we kind of overthink the process. And it's like, go to where it's safe. The Mr. Rogers quote, look for the helpers. You all know that one?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably know everything he's ever said.
Look for the helpers. But I mean, the reality is if someone isn't sure, 211, 911 are like great go-tos. And Women's Center and Shelter, obviously, for people who are local in Pittsburgh. For professionals who are out there, there's a really great app called Are You Safe? Letter R, letter U, safe. And it's actually like a screening tool. What it is the lethality assessment that the police often do. I believe that's the assessment that's on there. But it asks, the person will answer questions, and like the assessment determines if they really need to go get help. But that app within itself has like a ton of resources. Even if someone's looking online, like a lot of the shelters and these places for people who are at risk usually have like escape buttons. That's a very important tool for people to be aware of. Like if you're afraid because you're in such close quarters of people looking and seeing what you're going to do, like I know for a fact Women's Center and Shelter who are active and out here still supporting people and doing the good work, if you're on their website and someone's coming or you like click it and it takes you to like some random like
random website somewhere, whatever.
Yeah,
and we can put we will put links to both of those too in the podcast and the video link after this interview, for people to access all that information too, because that's super important.
Yeah, that being said, I have a question about hope. You talked earlier about hope. And, as someone who sometimes has a lot of it and then sometimes has none, very, very rarely in between, although I probably am a relatively hopeful person overall. But, I wonder, as someone who works in the community, as someone who works with families, children, all of the sort of hats you wear, mothers, right, everything. How do we get hope? Well, how do you get that? How do you do that?
The first thing that came to my mind was mindfulness. Hope looks very different to everyone. And self-compassion. So I don't want to force on someone that they have to be hopeful. I want to help people understand why if they're not hopeful and they're feeling however they need to feel it. And they need to sit in it and they need to process it and they need to understand that. And then hopefully they can move to hope. But yeah, I think I'm still just kind of sitting in that, like, whatever you're feeling it for a reason. So sit and try to really understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And hope is a state of mind, a spiritual state, a physical state. Hope can be carried into so many different realms, but you have to do the work first for yourself to figure out what that looks like for you and how you attain it. I know that's not exactly answering the question, but I don't want to give like a fix all end all band-aid, because that would not work.
Yeah, no, I mean, I also asked you a kind of wild question because like there isn't like one answer. I've been thinking, so Sid, we have to remember to put this also in our links because my favorite app, which is called the Liberate app, and it's like, you use that too? I love it. Put it in the link.
Referred it to people and they love it.
Oh, every single person I've referred it to is obsessed with it. And they have they have a couple newer ones too that are just giving me life, and something for me when it comes to hope that I've grasped onto has been legacy, like ancestors and legacy. Like that's something that I do to remind myself that like there is a bigger end. This is not just about like me, my moment here in the under the sun, and that's the end of it. There is so much more that every single person is causing and affecting and happening every day that's going to put us in one direction or another. And so I try to focus on legacy and ancestors a lot, and I find that meditations around ancestors and legacy have really helped me to reconnect at certain times to that hopefulness, because these are certainly times you can feel quite hopeless.
It reminds me of several conversations I've had, and one thing I ask people often, and that's, do you know whose shoulders you stand on? And it's, again, for me, it's about a balance. It's about being able to see things holistically, and fear is a big thing for me that I'm really just beginning to understand. Fear is a big obstacle for me in a lot of areas in my life. And someone said to me, do you know what fear really was? It was running for freedom. And I was like, I was kind of taken aback. But again, the mental health therapist in me wants to say, sit in it, acknowledge it. I'm going to validate it. But then there's this whole component of processing and moving through it. So,
and that's the integration that is often left out. This has been such a huge thing for Sydney and I, and definitely something that's inspired this work that we do is this greater understanding of integration. It's the part that we leave out. I don't even know if most people know what it is.
I don't either.
I think I had to become, I don't even think I learned it really in therapy school.
No.
We say these words like processing, but we're not clear. People say process. I mean, you hear it's thrown around, not even by therapists. Everybody throws these words around, but I don't think we know what that, when you say sit in it, I don't think people know what that means.
Yeah, I agree.
Like a lot of people want to, when we get to the like intellectual understanding, or whatever we think is the intellectual understanding of what we're getting through, like everyone's kind of trying to do with this right now. It's like, okay, it looks like we got 2 weeks left in this, and I'm okay here, but not here. I don't know. And that's like, once we intellectually understand it, then we've got it covered, but that's not quite, not enough at all. And sometimes that actually probably blocks integration at some level.
It's interesting because it makes me also think about the virtual component of how a lot of things are happening right now. Thankfully, I have not felt like a block or a disruption, but I can understand why someone else would, because when I'm in the presence of another human being, I can call out their physical state. I do it in therapy all the time. I'm like, why'd you change your seating position? Or why are you now sitting like that? Or, I seen Iyanla do this really cool thing in one of her episodes where this guy was so tense talking about his trauma, and she had him she was like, work that tension out as you're talking. And I would bring a lot of that physical stuff into like face-to-face sessions, because like you said, we get so stuck up here, but it's like, you can feel it. You can physically feel when you're sitting in an emotional or a psychological state. And I can see that with my client. So absolutely.
It's so challenging. It's like there's an upside, which is kind of nice. You can see people's pets and you're like, you're kind of invited into their home. But for people, all three of us, I mean, we do work that really is being with people
present
and their stuff. And it's different when you can't feel physically that physical energy, coming off of a person. It's definitely challenging. So I'm wondering, so how are you doing then? Like, how are you hanging in there? What is like particularly hard for you right now? And, besides hope and mindfulness and the sort of obvious things, what else is helping you navigate this COVID-19 pandemic world, Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone, yes. It's funny, one of my coworkers said she decided to go back and watch the original Twilight Zone. And she said the first episode was about isolation. And she was like,
oh my God. Like, never mind.
I grew up with the Twilight Zone. My dad had like the whole tape, like it went back when we only had tapes, and it was like every single episode on tape. And I watched them. And not long ago, I went back and restarted it, and it messed with my head. It was just too real. And he was brilliant. I mean, this is brilliant stuff. Oh my goodness.
Good, because it got into the psyche. It was like kind of like what Black Mirror's doing to us right now.
Oh yeah, that's like, I feel like that's, without the Twilight Zone, I don't know. Too real. Every single episode, you're like, this is that. And now it's like, this was probably an episode.
Yeah. And it was.
Listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely rethinking what productivity looks like for me. And again, giving myself more compassion and allowing more space for just being realistic about what my day looks like and what I can get done in a day. And really just checking in with myself. So I feel very consumed at the end of a work day. So I'm very choosy about like how many clients I see in a day, the times I see them, who's the first, who's the last. And I was like that before, but I'm very particular about it now. And just being really honest with myself and honest with my clients. Friday, I just didn't have it in me. I didn't have it. And I text my clients and said, today is not a good day. Can you meet at the same time Monday? Because if I can't bring you all of me, what use is that to anybody? And I've been short with clients before because I didn't have, and I don't want to do that either. I don't ever want to, sacrifice the quality of my work because of my stuff. Like, and even as a therapist, early when this first happened, there was a lot of talk about how this was a great time for therapists to like model how therapy and addressing your stuff and growing wasn't about perfection. It was like for us to model how, we're being affected too, and this is how we're dealing with it. This is what the work really looks like.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, it's a little heartbreaking too when you think about that we are modeling honesty, that we actually have to sort of like model what it means to be like, instead of screaming at your dog, trying to pretend like he's not there, jumping on you or crying, or a baby trying to get fed or whatever, it's like letting it happen. I've been finding a lot of inspiration, I guess is the best word, when I'm, through this model, because I'll be honest, I do not like being on the computer like this. I do not like doing a lot of this stuff. Is probably the easiest stuff I get to do, is just talk with people, but it's very challenging for me. And so it's been inspiring to see the people in the meeting or in the group that just don't give a shit. They're just like, no, I mean, so somebody's there, whatever. I'm in a house with people, or like the dog, give me a minute. The dog is, So I think just like that, bringing, modeling honesty and humanness is
empathy. And, I was in a doula meetup. So it's also Black Maternal Health Week, and I'll come back to that. But I was in a doula meetup, and the mom, her daughter kept coming in, like all the doulas were introducing herself. She's like, and I'm Anya, she's like, I'm sorry. And we're like, this is what our lives look like right now, like
Mhm.
what it is.
Mhm. And they always did. We just like pretend like, and we're still getting everything's fine. Like we're still functioning. There's no reason why we had to sort of perform this before.
And it's kind of scary to me because it makes me think of the days of like hearing the executive women talk about hiding their kids under their desk and like stuff like that. And it's like, are we going backwards now?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Well, tell us a little bit too about this. It's Maternal Health Week, Black Maternal Health Week 2020, right? And this is a national thing, am I correct?
This is a national thing, and I don't want to get this incorrect. I cannot tell you who officially organized it, but
Okay, we'll put it in all the text.
The Black Mamas Matters Alliance is really big in, incorporating and doing the research and really doing a lot of that heavy lifting of this Black maternal health work. Black Maternal Health Week was created really just to discuss, hold space, and just show up about, what's happening to Black mamas across the country, which, unfortunately doesn't look different with every other disparity as far as accessibility, infant and maternal mortality and morbidity rates, necessary research, and even just space for professionals to come together and to talk. And so Healthy Star Incorporated locally is having stuff virtually. Again, the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, which is a national group, is doing things this week virtually. There is the Maternal Wellness Village, which is actually located in Philadelphia. I was just at their doula meetup prior to my supervision meeting, prior to meeting with you all. And to listen to, just a bunch of beautiful Black women talk about their passions, what they're doing in their community, their work, like it gave me so much life. And one of the doulas, actually, she said, because one of the doulas was like, oh, shameless plug, I'm going to be selling. She's like, for us, by us, community over competition, plug, plug. And like, where do you hear that? Mm-hmm. And then there's also Mama Glow, Latham Thomas. She's very popular and known for her spirituality and her birth work. She's having something tomorrow. So, and everything's being held virtually, obviously, right now. But again, it's creating this space, because when would I otherwise connect with the Maternal Wellness Village in Philadelphia and be able to commune with those women?
I don't know, Sydney, did you mention earlier on that we were all in doula training together?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember, but you always cover everything, so I should have assumed. But yeah, I think it's so interesting because there's something so special about birth workers. It's just like they're all of them everywhere. It's like, I don't know if it's just because once you've seen that, it's like, what else is there?
Right.
You've seen birth and death in all the ways. Like what? It's like the only people I've found that have always allowed me to be my fullest self have been those people. Even when I think about the people in my life who, even before I was a birth worker, who I didn't even like, they were just my friends, and they were the ones who I always felt like the most loved from, were birth workers, but I didn't even like put that together then.
Yeah.
So interesting.
It's something about how birth workers hold space and hold people, I think, and just their view on life. Because like you said, once you've seen life and death, like, what else?
Yeah.
What else? And it's funny because when we talk about full spectrum doula work, you have a lot of doulas who will specifically, or within their spectrum, support terminations, death doula. So it all just, we're talking about a time where people need support. Regardless of whatever that transition is, they need support. And you have a special group of people who go out to do that specifically. And I'm going to quote Doula 10, who is our teacher and amazing. And I remember she said at the end of the training, the mothers are the people who are going to change the world. The mothers, the people carrying and birthing the people in our future generations. And it's like, and who's next to them? The birth workers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's it. I think that
got life and death, so we've
it, right?
covered it all.
Anything we left out?
Nap, so I guess it's time for us to go out.
Yeah. It's probably, I just realized it's probably time to eat some dinner.
Yes.
But yeah, is there anything we left out? Anything you want to add? We're just so glad that you joined us and so excited for people to know you and know your work. And thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to get to work with both of you.
Thank you for having me, Sydney. It's so great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. And take care of your little, what's the dog baby's name again?
Coco.
Coco.
Got a lot of aliases, but it's Coco.
A lot of aliases. Why don't we go out to all the aliases of these dogs? Coco, Chanel.
Coco Chanel, Shakoko, Mommy, Coke Money. She answers to all of it.
So. Anything.
I call the dog Chunk Monk.
Cocoa Puff. That's the other one.
Oh, Cocoa Puff, yeah.
I'm so jealous. I grew up with dogs and I miss them.
You can borrow ours anytime.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.